School violence. This was the term used to describe offenders who demonstrate their social and physical strength by moving in groups. They were called Iljins who could no longer be controlled by their teachers. But even those like them had to submit to those who were stronger than them. And at the meeting this was the most important theme of the project. They wanted to secretly appoint stronger Iljins to lead the rest. They wanted to gain control over everyone. It turned out that they wanted to control violence through violence. They didn't know if there was a man who could take care of them all. A guy called Kwon Dae-gun was studying for his exams. He dropped out of school and worked part-time at a convenience store. His boss, who was also his partner, started telling him that young people these days have no passion for anything at all and that things were better back in their day. He didn't like his part-time job and thought that maybe he had dropped out of school for nothing. He didn't know where else he could relieve his stress. The seniors teased the boy less than them about taking his money. Then the head boy told him to go buy him some cigarettes. So he went with his girlfriend to the shop where Kwon Dae-gun worked. The guy's partner in the shop went to the shop room and told him to serve the customers. And he said yes. The high school boy comes to him and says to give him 2 packets of cigarettes. But the guy saw that he looked like a senior and asked him for his passport. He said he could not sell without a passport and for them to leave. They did not understand why they were not being sold. The old man had always sold them, but why wouldn't he now? The guy threw money at him and took another drink. But they still didn't want to sell to him without a passport. Then the older man shouted at him and grabbed him by his clothes. And started saying, "How dare you say that? Do you want me to break your jaw?" The old man came out and saw the guy he didn't want to sell cigarettes to, but he beat him up and took them away. He thought about calling the police, but he didn't want to make a fuss. So he told them there were customers here and to go outside and deal with it. The guy understood that he wanted to let it pass his eyes. They went outside the shop. The older man took him by the neck and told him to say again what he said. He threatened him and said no one could help him. The salesman tells him to let him go. He gives him 3 seconds. They started laughing at him. 3, 2, 1. And literally in 1 second the bully was lying on the ground unconscious. He didn't understand what had happened and said he was just being inattentive, and if he had been fighting for real he wouldn't have touched him. So he yelled to call out the other bullies. His girlfriend ran after the other guys. The bully on his knees started telling him, "You don't know what, you don't know who I am." The salesman put his hand on his shoulder and asked him how old he was. He did not want to answer and the man began to squeeze it. He replied 17. He told him not to exaggerate and that if he came back to buy cigarettes he would be ill. His friends came running in and laughed at him because he was on his knees. They asked him who he was. "Are you out of your mind?" His friend was very big and he thought he had brought his uncle. He replied that he was Dahan from high school and he didn't know who he was. He started swinging at the salesman. But in the next 2 seconds, the salesman put him on the ground. No one understood why he passed out from one blow. The seller said that he could not stay here any longer and that they all attacked at once. They got angry and started running at him. In the next few seconds, they were all lying unconscious. The first guy tried to hit him with a bottle, but failed. The last one left. He said there was only one person who could be that strong. Probably the same guy who went to the same school as him. They say the whole area called Incheon, which 2 years ago was in the blood era, was wiped out in just 1 week. He also heard it was better to get shot than to get hit by Kwon. But then he was very handsome and he didn't recognize him. The bully started worshipping him and apologizing, saying it wouldn't happen again and asking him to forgive him. He told him never to behave so arrogantly again. He apologized again. He wanted to call them all an ambulance. But there was a knock and they woke up. The salesman told them that if they came into the shop one more time and acted like dogs, they were all dead. So they all started running away. Anyway, he didn't have time to study because of them. but after a while he was finally able to stretch his fists. When he started to go back to the shop, a girl came up to him. She asked if he had a minute. He said he didn't need any favors. But that's not what she meant. She gave him her card and said she had an offer. He didn't understand what kind of education fund it was, but it was explained to him. He accepted the offer. The boy went back to his school. He couldn't believe he went to school when he was 20. They met that girl, and they talked about the Ilgins. According to the name of the project, they're all run by one. She thought it would be possible after she saw his abilities. They were doing similar things behind the scenes, running an education fund. They looked into his past and said he was very desperate and not to pretend to be strong. Now is not the time to brag about the past. This is a good chance to right all the wrongs of the past. He agreed and asked what he should do. He went to class. All the girls looked at him and said how handsome he was. There were a lot of bullies in his class. They all insulted and humiliated those who were weaker than them. They already knew that a new student was coming. They called him an exchange student, because the guy they were humiliating had left them before. A teacher comes into the classroom with a new student. He introduced himself. The main bully was ready to beat him up. He sat down in the place of the student who left them. He got to know his neighbor. The guy put on his study glasses. The neighbor told him that this class might be different from your previous one. He had bad eyesight and without his glasses he would get dizzy. The bully who was sitting behind them hit the boy's neighbor on the head and said that he had to take responsibility for his friend. He said he couldn't because he had class. The bully told everyone to close their eyes and not to open them. There were a lot of rules in his agreement that Kwon signed when he came here. No disclosure, no abuse, no witnesses. He didn't understand what he had to do if he had to abide by them all. She said it was a secret project and she couldn't help but be careful. Following the rules meant, bully asked why he didn't close his eyes, started laughing at him and said your place originally belonged to his courier. He told them to get together. He said no, because one courier is enough. They started laughing at him and told him to go. The guy told him to give him some money. The bully shouted at him not to poke him with his fingers and to give him the money. The guy said, "Don't you have any money? Parents didn't give you pocket money? Oh, or don't you have parents?" The bully put his hand on him. The guy looked up and said he started it. And in the next few seconds, he put him on the ground. Fists are the law at school. Who cares about the rules? He said. What's wrong with you? Shouted the second bully. He said he was fed up with him for talking nonsense, and told him to go to him. The bully got scared. And the guy said, all right, I'll go over there myself. The bully came at him and fought him as hard as he could, but no uranium hit him. He couldn't hit him. So he punched him in the stomach. At this time the first bully wanted to hit him with a chair, but he noticed this and he hit him again. Both hooligans were lying on the floor. Anyway, that's the way it should be. Is the bread really that good? He asked. I wonder how tasty it is, bring me some of it. He didn't want to carry it. Did he say that you thought you had beaten 2 people and now everyone had to obey you? That bully wasn't in charge. He said that the one in charge was coming. And then the guy with the red hair walks into the classroom. That's who you were hoping for? Is he your leader? Asked Kwon Dae-gun. He walks into the classroom and asks how they got beaten up alone. He wasn't even wearing a scratch. The guy walks up to him and wants to get to know him better. He asked the class what was going to fight. And everyone stepped back because they were afraid of him. But the new student realized that even though he said so, his feet were shoulder-width apart, his center of gravity shifted in tension towards him. His shoulders are relaxed so he can strike faster. He also discreetly adopted a boxer's stance. He could attack at any moment. His name was Manho. Everyone said that even though the newcomer was strong, he knew nothing about him and had no chance of winning. He was different from them. He introduced himself and asked his name. As soon as Kwon wanted to say his name, he sharply wanted to kick him in the groin. It hit the sensitive area between his legs. It was a pain on the edge of life and death. It was a forbidden move which was better not to use. Even though there's little chance of him hitting, the guy automatically tried to defend himself. And then it turns out it was just a trick and the attacker punches the guy in the face. Everyone knew about the punch, but the new guy didn't know about it. He punches and taunts him at the same time. The second time he didn't get a chance to hit him and he flew back against the wall. Usually all fights ended with a punch, but he was blocked. He tried to throw a heavy object at him, but he dodged it. All subsequent blows were totally unsuccessful. Eventually he lost consciousness. There was something wrong with him and he didn't want to fight him anymore. Everyone was very surprised. The guy said to bring him to his senses. He said he'd keep an eye on them. Conference room. Kwon Dae-gun had an important day that the director of education couldn't miss. For the sake of his speech, the meeting will be longer than usual. When she walked in, Kwon's classmate saw her. She was sure she was the director of the Education Foundation, and she didn't understand what brought her to the school. Kwon approached the boys and told them that he could be their friend or the devil, the choice was up to them. He also told the guy who made the others deliver bread to them not to do it anymore or he was finished. He told the classmates that if they were harassed or molested, they would tell him and he would shred them into molecules and then reassemble them into entirely new people. They said he was really scary and cute, the classmates said. Guys who were even stronger than the ones he beat up. They saw the video of him beating up those 3 guys. They didn't understand the show and said he was just lucky and they didn't think he was that strong. They said the guy he fought was just a rookie who got beaten up. A weakling who only learned one stance in 2 months. He was doing dirtier things than he'd ever done before, barely holding chapter status. He was no match for Samba who was stronger than him. Samba went to warm up on weak classmates. He started beating them one by one before facing the newcomer. The second day at the old school. Kwon from the past did not understand the beauty of simple lessons. It was much better than studying for exams alone, working part-time. He decided to take this opportunity to cleanse his horrible past. He went to school as an ordinary student. The bully started to say that someone should bring him bread. But Kwon looked at him and quickly changed his mind. Said, what kind of school is this that doesn't even have one delivery boy? He couldn't do anything now because he was always watching them. A girl came up to the new guy and said he was a good fighter. Told him to go with her. If he wanted to learn Jujitsu. She always used that tone of voice when she was seducing someone. Whenever she asked others to do something, they'd do it for her. Is there a gym nearby? He asked her. She said there was and she could teach him something else. He didn't understand what she was offering. He cheated off the blackboard and said he couldn't hear. She said nothing. Study hard and become a great man. And she told the bullies that they should start studying too. And that they shouldn't even think about revenge. The new kid defeated them and became the head of the first class. Then Kim from class 2 and Shin from class 3 will try to fight the new kid. And he can become head again without fighting him again. A guy with white hair walks into the classroom and asks Manho why he is still alive and why he was looking for him. Manho says, if you're here to fight, come on. I'll send you to the hospital bed. They wanted to start fighting, but the new kid said it was too noisy. He can't study because of the noise. The guy who came said he was already dead and that he would deal with him. You can rest now. The bullies said they were rooting for the new guy. The guy started humiliating the new guy. He saw that he was diligently taking notes. He wanted to grab his arm, but the new guy grabbed him so hard he started screaming in pain. He said that he had to finish by the end of the break and that if he wanted to lose his fingers, he could come back later. He got scared and he said let's go, but suddenly he came at him with his fists. But he didn't hit and got a hard punch in the face. He asked if he was the head of the second class, said he was not patient and that he was looking for him himself. He said that if he saw them again they were finished. They ran away. Just now he had solved the problem of the second class. It was easier than he expected. The bullies said they forgave him and that they should study. Another guy walks in and says that he heard Manho lost. The hooligans didn't realize what déjà vu was. Are they queuing up there? Why did he come? He said they didn't care about them. They came to see the new guy. Well, I'll finish it next time, he said. They kicked the roommate out and started asking him why he was studying. He said he was Samba, from 3rd grade. I heard that you beat Manho. I'm just worried that you will become the boss or something because you beat him. The new guy said to say he has to, he's busy. Samba said they'll see each other after class, and he should be ready, as he is better than Manho. They left. He didn't understand why they were all pestering him from day one. He couldn't seem to have a normal school life or study. A classmate was worried about the newcomer as he was in danger. She was worried because she liked the newcomer more than the other guy. Or do you want to be a punching bag, she asked. Manho said he couldn't allow that and he went to the new guy. Asked if he could sit with him, but he said he couldn't. He started talking about the guy from class 3. Even though he can't see it, it's true. He didn't look like him or the kid from the 2nd grade that came before. He was a real martial arts guy. And he wanted to help him. The other bullies were surprised. What are you up to? The new kid asked. He said he would tell him Samba was fighting tactics. He said he didn't need it, but he started telling anyway. He had been boxing since high school, but he was interested in boxing competitions. The reason he was practicing was for a set of pairs. The pairs were ordinary classmates he used to beat, but they didn't tell anyone. He said he was training them. At recess all the pupils went to the cafe. It had been a long time since he had eaten school food. He missed it. Until recently, he always ate stale food from the shop. Everyone was looking at the new pupil and saying how handsome he was. The guys were talking about how he knocked out a boss with one punch. They didn't know if it was skill or just luck. A girl came up to him. Manho told him to eat more as Samba is not so easy. He said he won, but then why should he be worried? He said the fight with him was not over yet. This fight was one-sided. He used a lot of space. He dodged all his attacks and attacked him at the same time, just when he thought he couldn't beat him. He managed to pin him against the wall. He thought he wouldn't get another chance, so he decided to use a forbidden move, and it was true. Then he started screaming and saying he'd lost. But now he won't admit it. You can tell he's a boxer with great evasive skills, and although he's not strong, he hits in the weakest areas. After he lost, he doesn't want to fight me anymore. He's going to beat you and us too, and he wanted the new guy to get rid of him. Today he was particularly strong. Everyone was on Samba's side. The boys who passed near him threw him dried squid even though he didn't like them much. They said they didn't care and started walking away. He took his hand and said they were bells. Everyone was looking at them and thought they were going to fight. Everyone wanted to see what he could do. The guy he caught was scared and said he was sorry. And then the new guy got a message. He got a text from his supervisor. If you successfully complete the project, we'll pay your entire college tuition after school. And we'll provide support for your quiet school life. The rules weren't just to limit him. She wanted to say there was a limit to his behavior. If the existence of the project was threatened by unreasonable behavior, the project would be cancelled. And he would go back to his past life. I think she meant to tell him not to cross the line and to focus on the mission. but the risk of being discovered was very low. If he succeeded in this project, he could achieve what he used to dream of. He said that he had been fighting too much for the first day and that he needed to conserve energy. In spite of his previous actions, he didn't seem to be the type to rush. The guy went with the cafe. Though he too was told that he hadn't been told about Samba yet. He said he didn't have to. He'd been exposed on the first day. He didn't know how the supervisor would react to that. Today he would behave himself. But then a guy who was in the cafe walked by and he grabbed him. He said that there was a rule that you could not touch other students from other classes. And that you can only touch him when you beat Samba. It's a tradition that's been around for a long time. If you don't follow the rules, you're a target for all schools. They went behind the school so no one would see them. And in a quiet place, he hit him. He thought he could fight all he wanted. The boy said he would regret it. He said to call his boss. If he beats him, I can beat you all I want. He said he's gonna beat him right now, so tell him to come over. He says he doesn't think he can come right now. Since he's beating the punching bags right now, he was making other students pretend to be them. He said he couldn't let him go on and he went looking for him. He found him and saw him beating them. His pairs are different, he picks students who are unable to fight back and beats them. Then he walks in on him. And then something happened that nobody could have expected.